a solution to certain problems. If I see somebody building a structure and for whatever reason they may not be doing it properly, I would lend my advice with the hope that they would listen and follow through and take corrective actions in order to make things better. In that regard, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the monkeys. If for whatever reason I am trained to deal with primates or animals as the case might be, and they become a problem, I will attempt to lend my expertise, ideas of research, what to do to curtail their expansion, and to just say, well, this is part of the forestry department. That's like passing the buck. I'm just saying, here we are in Nevis, and we have to learn to assist wherever possible, and lend our expertise, give advice, as the case might be. So when Dr. Bartley is telling me that is the forestry department, and therefore it's like that is somebody else's purview or domain, and I'm not going to go there. It's our community. No, and if we're asking for relief, then those of us who got advice, expertise, if other research structures need to be put in place to attempt to curtail this problem, then I think we all have an obligation to fulfill our role within our community to help ameliorate or curtail some of these problems, whether it's a monkey, it's a donkey, it's a sheep, as the case might be. I leave it at that, Webbo.
Yeah, Webbo, I don't know that I'm not here to defend myself. I just made a statement of fact. I'm just saying where, you know, the authority lies as it relates to these issues. I was not necessarily distancing myself from any solution that we could pursue, because, and I'm not a person to take personal, you know, credit for anything, but someone made reference to the monkey project that was going on. And I would say that when the chap came, the ideas that he had were completely foreign, you know, to anything that he ended up doing. And like I said, I'm not one to take credit, but I could assure you that every component that was executed in that project would have come from the advice that I would have given. But like I said, I'm not one to take credit for anything. Maybe if Mr. Stanley were in a position, maybe they would listen to him because he's a man, because it seems to me like people generally don't have respect for women around here. And so if you want something done, you have to tell a man and then you'll get it done. And so essentially that is what happened as it relates to that particular project. Not like, and like I said, I'm still not taking credit for it, but every component in that project, you know, totally different from the concept that he came with initially, and the project was executed. As it relates to how the donkey problem is being handled, I am not in defense of it. I don't, like I said, I don't know the details of it either, you know, but it's not like I've never been involved in, you know, a program to try to give the public some relief, you know, but there's not every truth is to be told, you know, Mr. Stanley. And there's a time and place for everything, and you know, I kind of stick to that too. So I don't want you to go with the feeling that I've never really, you know, tried to work, you know, in terms of trying to fashion a solution for these problems that we're having. But like I said, it's not easy to deal with men, trust me. For some reason, and there's a gentleman who said that to me the other day, he said men seem to be threatened by women, and I still don't understand why. You know, we're here and we should all be working for the good of the country, but anytime a woman seems to say something, they want to just push her aside. And I've watched that, and I've watched us as a country just basically go through a phase where we're just accepting mediocrity once it's coming from a man. and with little regards for the input that women could have. I remember, you know, and this is not something I'm taking credit for either, you know, but you know, the first I can remember, and Weber would have the tapes. From the time we started to talk about crime and the way things were going, I kept saying, we need to have a truce, we need to have a truce, and nobody could understand, you know, the benefits of it. And we're seeing it now, and like I said, I'm not taking credit for it. But that is what happens when you isolate people, when you try to marginalize people. You don't get the best, you know, out of the situation, and so the country suffers. But sometimes people think that they're doing you something, they're doing Dr. Bartlett something by, you know, trying to marginalize her. You're not doing me anything. I have a fence, and donkey don't bother me. I mean, and I don't have anything planted, so monkeys don't bother me, you know. And I can take that approach, but I've never done that because I love my country, and I would always say it, you know. And notwithstanding, I don't come here and say things, you know. But when I get the opportunity and I'm in a forum that requires me to say something, I'm not someone to keep quiet. And I have let my feelings known, and I've shared, you know, the basic recommendations that I've, you know, over the years. And the fact that we're not even more advanced doesn't have anything necessarily to do with me not contributing to it. I've tried. And trust me, I would always open my mouth and say when I think that things could be done differently. And the chips fall where they may. And so while I'm not going to take any credit, you know, for most of, or anything that I might have said, I'm sure not going to take the blame for things not being better because, like I said, I've tried.
Well, I somewhat look at results. If an effort has been made and the results are not forthcoming, then you have to be like Bruce and the Spider. Try and try and try and try again. Because what we are looking for is for solutions.
Yes,
And
but men are not ready to listen to women. That is a fact of life.
I am not so sure that this fits snugly into this man-woman
It does.
scenario that you
It
try
does.
to continuously
But you
drive.
wouldn't get it because you're not in the
No,
system. You have to be part of
listen.
the system to be able to appreciate it. Talk to a lot of women in this system and you'll probably get about the same kind of sentiments. Trust me on that one.
You mentioned that seemingly men are afraid of women.
No, no.
Those are papyrus men who entertain such thoughts.
I said a man said that, you know, the other day a man would have pointed that
Well,
out to me.
don't tell him that Edric Stanley says that he is a papyrus
That's the
man.
observation he made.
All right? And tell him to be a real man and take the approach of a real man, and then he wouldn't be entertaining thoughts and ideas and ultimately making a comment to you, who's such a person who kept pushing the female agenda. Tell him step up to the plate and become a real man, and not to attempt to
You're digressing.
pass the ball with reference to having an excuse. And at some point in time, based on what we're saying now, he just might come to me and I'll tell him, boy, look, we want to go wear frock? Anyway.
You're digressing.
No, well, I'm just saying to you
Fuck off to do it.
that there are times that we have to take the bull by the horns and bring about solutions. We can only quantify what progress we have made based on the solutions. There's a problem, and if we take a pragmatic approach to that problem, we should be able to get results. If you don't get it now, keep trying. Reach out to other people who might be able to assist. Find out, and so much information is available at our particular development. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door will open. We are looking for solutions to the monkeys, the donkeys, and now it seems as though we're having a sheep problem. Of course, it's dry weather and the sheep are straying around looking for food. They probably, for whatever reason, wound up in Charlestown. I can't tell you why, but like I said, that was brought to the fore.
sheep in Charleston is not really a rare sight, and I must advise you. Sheep in Charleston is not a rare sight because you have people who in the vicinity who have sheep and, you know, like, would not have any place to graze them, let alone, you know.
Well, on to the thing with the hen chipping away with the chicks, I would say this, that the greatest gift to man by God is motherhood. May I repeat it? The greatest gift to man by God is motherhood. And that role will never be taken away. No matter how ravenous that cock appeared to have eaten all the corn from the bowl or whatever the feed was, he played his role, a selfish role, but not every,
What is his role, Stanley?
not his role is to provide.
But he wasn't providing.
Right, well,
You
in that
missed it.
species, in that regard, the specific regard, he wasn't providing. But
And that is the point. You miss the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that you're right. You say.
he's not a man. He's not a man. He's a male, but I'm saying to you, most men provide for their family.
But you have a lot who don't.
Well,
Okay, now I think I've gotten the thing sorted out. So I apologize for that mix-up. I would not announce what caused the problem because it would end up being a light moment, but well, heavy metal stuff. That wouldn't be a light moment, so I wouldn't mention it. But I'm very grateful that technical staff they've sorted it out. So I was saying that we're going to first go to Dr. Henry Brown, and I was mentioning earlier that not at the time, but he was a leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. He was the opposition leader at one point, and I think Dr. Douglas took over from him. But this is a comment that Dr. Henry Brown made around the time of the impasse in 1993.
Mr. Moderator, one question I think which all of us would be interested in is the way forward from here. I suggest, and what does the panel think of the question of business, the business organization in St. Kitts, combining with the Christian Union, combining with the Labour Party to brief a lawyer to challenge the legality of the government in the courts. If you say, Dr. Brown, that the government is an unlawful and illegal government, do you think that that is a way forward? Do you think that that is a viable solution? No. And what? And well, Dr. Brown, if you don't think that that is a viable solution, what do you think and what do the other panelists think is a viable solution out of this, having regard to the fact that that you say that there is a political impasse, that you say that there is a constitutional impasse, that you say that business has been affected. What do you really think is the way forward from here?
I didn't say that there was a constitutional impasse. I said there was a breach of the Constitution. And why do you insist on saying if the government is legal or illegal?
Well, I don't think the government is illegal.
Well, you're a lawyer, you can express that view, but don't if it. The second point I wish to state is this. Speaking for myself, the day I enter court to argue the unconstitutionality of the regime, that matter for me becomes sub judice. I will have to await the ruling of the court. That might take 5 years. And I am not in that wealthy street today. Speaking for myself, I'm not going to give Simmons 5 years in there while I argue with something in the court. Not while men out there could walk and run and so.
So, Dr. Brown, you are suggesting that the only way out of this is violence.
Call it what you will. Whatever it takes to bring Dr. Simmons down in short order, that is what we have to do. Whatever you call it. But you don't believe that Dr. Simmons is perpetuating violence on us?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that's your view, so hold on to him. That's not my view, though. My view is to bring him down, and bring him down as quickly as ever, whatever it takes.
That was back then, the tone and everything, you know? That's what I'm saying. And again, as I said, if you stay tuned to the Eastern Caribbean Spa House for the next couple of weeks, you'll be getting some good education as far as history is concerned, and of St. Kitts and Nevis. But that was that. I didn't listen to it before. I just heard it, for the first time. Meaning, when I said for the first time, I heard it back then, but, I just asked him to let me borrow it to play tonight. The other one was entitled...
Just a short comment.
Yes.
I always believed that the government at that time was constitutionally proper, simply because of the numbers. And regardless to what Dr. Brown had in mind, that's what he said, I think Dr. Brown, from a political point of view, felt it was unconstitutional, but legally within himself, understanding the Constitution, he knew that the government was constitutionally constituted.
But the evidence
Was
showed that...
was to take Simmons out from a political point of view, take him down, and to ensure that Simmons does not govern for any length of time. But like I said, I am 99.999% certain that Dr. Brown knew that the government was a properly constituted government based on the numbers under the Constitution.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment before I go to the return of Edric Stanley? Edric, you figured out what it could have been?
No, I have no idea, because I always felt that I've been here, and unless I was on carrying out on the Mark show, and then I came back.
Well, okay, don't sweat. Here it is.
I'm speculating.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to the people, good people of St. Kitts Nevis. And good evening to the people of the wider Caribbean and those who would be listening to us on the World Wide Web. And I must say, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord for having spared my life to not only be here in person on Vaughan Radio, but once again to speak to the people of St. Kitts Nevis and the people throughout the world on the World Wide Web via Vaughan Radio. I must take this opportunity, Webo, to thank the many congregations throughout the nation of St. Kitts Nevis, St. Thomas and St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and New York, for having remembered me in their prayers, and also for those who have shed tears for the ordeal that had been perpetrated on me, and also the nation of St. Kitts Nevis, with reference to what happened to me on the 30th of May 2007. I must also thank the good doctors and nurses and the auxiliary staff of the Alexandra Hospital, and those people who looked after me as I entered St. Clair Medical Center in Trinidad. I also must say thanks to Mr. Anthony Jones, who has given me the lead, and ultimately I made the decision as the place that I should go. He's the one who recommended the St. Clair Medical Center, where he himself had superb treatment. Well, fortunately, with the grace of God, based on what happened, it was nothing short of a miracle. And based again on the grace of God, I'm still here on the land of the living. I must also say, thanks to my dear wife, Shirlene, and my daughter, Amanda, son Daniel, son Derek, and Diane, and all my other children who were close by my side during this ordeal. They have given me much support, and as a result, I am back from the jungle more rapidly than I expected. Praise the Lord.
Well, I thought you mentioned year 1989 or thereabout. That's why
you
I
got
could
confused. 1989, I was referring to Dr. Henry Brown. Are you Dr. Henry Brown?
not. No, but
Well, that's what I was referencing when I said
that's
Dr.
why,
89.
that's why I could not have stated I am back.
But you heard you are back from the jungle.
Well, yes, but
Okay.
at the same time, I factored in the date, and that is what was at the forefront of my mind. And consequently, I couldn't figure out when was I, or when did I make such a statement? 89, no. And that is, anyway, I understand.
That you are back
Well, I'm back
from the jungle.
from the jungle, but I should have known, because that's the only thing, only period when I was not here. But the timetable in terms of date, the year, threw me off. I may have misinterpreted in terms of what was said regarding Dr. Henry Brown and that timetable. Anyway, well, it is really great when you've got good equipment to do such fine and superb work with reference to this kind of memory, bringing back everything, and it's just as fresh as it had been like today. Well,
What year was it?
2007.
You know, did we ever make any headway on that case?
No, we will not make any headway simply because of how our society is predicated. But you leave situations like these to those perpetrators, and ultimately, they will find their rope's end. I can't tell you what has transpired, but I have not heard a particular name bandied around anymore. So, who knows? Because God works in a very mysterious way. A lot of people may not understand it, but He works in a very mysterious way. And God protects His people. God protects His people. And from an astrological point of view, there are certain things that happen, will continue to happen. Some of us mysteriously cannot explain it. But that was a miracle. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Webo.
The return of Edric W. Stanley. That was something else. It was such a joyous time and day to have you back, because when I remember that event, and I would tell people, it is amazing how some people can inspire and encourage other people even when you think that they're down. Because when I went first to look for Edric Stanley and in the hospital, and I was almost timid on going because I felt so sad when I heard the news and everything.
Amen.
And I remember when I got there and I see him perhaps sad and in despair, and I said, "Edric, how you doing?" And Edric, in his bold, his courageous manner, from his hospital bed, said to me, "Boy, Webber, they put me down, but they couldn't put me out."
Praise the Lord. That's the Lord.
And I said, "There you go." And so his spirits were high. You know, and so, you know, I sometimes, you know, you get so upset about it, but then I remember there's a passage in the Bible where he had some smart cookies were questioning Jesus and the things that he was doing. And they said, if you're so great and you have power over everything, why did you let certain things happen? And I love that fellow so much. You know what he told them? It's so that the word be fulfilled.
Amen. Amen.
Evil things have to happen so that you can see how good I am.
Amen. Praise
So,
the Lord.
you know, those things must be. Anyway, the return of Edric W. Stanley. That was just a sample of what's coming up. There are lots of other stuff that's coming up, as I said, that I show a lot of people. And, you know, the TED documentary, listen to it. It has a piece in there that a lot of people are going to be. It's very intriguing. TED back then. It's very intriguing as well. So we got a lot of great stuff coming up beginning next Tuesday. Okay, let's get a break and then we will come right back. This is Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nyliber, and Dr. Patricia Bartlett. We're back after these.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builders Paradise is running a special on granite at an unbelievable starting price of $599.99 per slab. Check the price again. It's $599.99 per granite slab. You don't want to miss out on this special offer. Visit them today at CAP Southwell Industrial Site St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nyliber, and Edric Stanley back with you.
Well, that issue that Weber brought, that Naya brought to the fore regarding the toilet facility, that is such a simple, practical matter. Because there's space in that area, and I do not see how that could affect the water table with reference to a septic and the distance it would be from the bath stream itself. Because there would be quite a distance, and filtration will occur to the extent where we would not have contamination of the bath stream if a toilet were to be placed.
Edric, let me just take this. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Weber, it's a winter class, right?
Caller, there's an issue with...
Weber.
Yes.
This is Winky talking. I want to ask Patricia Bartlett, right? She's the head of it, right? Why Nevis have to be run out of vertical and Nevis has some more animals? That's the problem I want to ask you. And I can't answer that question because I want you to answer the question. Nevis have so many farmers. Why Nevis have to go to St. Kitts and get vertical and Nevis have vertical place in Nevis a vet place in Nevis and you can't encourage people to put your animal? That's my question I want to ask Patricia Bartlett tonight.
Dr. Bartlett?
Well, Webber, like everything else, sometimes you order stuff and you don't get them in a timely manner. Sometimes we do run out of stuff. I'm not in control of the public purse. When their money is allocated for certain things, we do purchases, you know. There were times when St. Kitts used to get medical from us as well, you know, but these things sometimes you could say they're cyclical. But there was a period of time when we were out of medical just because the suppliers didn't have medical. And then they shipped some, and then they all went to St. Kitts, and then we had to find our supplies sometime weeks after. So it really wasn't anything that we could have done about it except, you know, wait until the shipment got here, because the suppliers themselves had to be supplied from a source, you know, outside of the Caribbean. So it was just a matter that we had to wait on the supplies.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Webber,
Yes.
this is me back again, right? This is a vet place you call him to. You say you call of your place is a vet, right? You ain't supposed to be running out of these things because you know you have personal people in Nevis, and most people in Nevis deal with animals. So how come you can run out of these things? You're supposed to stay in stock. You're running behind times. You're running behind times. To call yourself an organization for yourself as vet, you're running behind times, man. You need to get up.
All right, thank you. Dr. Bartlett, you were through with the...
Well, yeah,
comment.
well, basically, I don't know that there's anything that I can say at this point that would satisfy the call. Obviously, he's peeved about the fact that we didn't have medical for a period of time. But all I can advise him to do is, there is a period of time, because we have medical, and there was a time when we were using medical every 2 weeks, and that was for a 2-year period, and if everybody had cooperated, really, we probably could have come close to eradicating the tick that now, you know, but people were not really cooperating, and they should, and so it is persistent, and we still have the tick with us. The advice that we give, though, is that because it is a seasonal problem, we usually have a period of time that you may see 1 or 2 ticks, but that doesn't mean you should necessarily have to treat, because it's expensive to do so. If you see 1 or 2 ticks on the animal, you can just pick them off. However, by the time we get to the 3rd quarter, that's when we have an explosion in the tick population. Then is when you must at least be treating at least every 2 weeks, you know, to be on the safe side. But you don't necessarily have to treat for the whole year. And I don't know if that would give him any comfort, but it really would not be cost effective for him to be treating every 2 weeks for the whole year. So in July, and I can assure him that we would have stock. Well, currently we do have, you know, stock in place, and that would, you know, be able to cover for the entire 3rd period into the 4th, and a little of the 1st quarter next year. But ticks are not necessarily a bother for the whole year, and you don't have to treat for the whole year. And that would have been on some research that we would have done.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Well, I'm not talking about me alone. We're talking about the whole livestock farmers, and they say they have everything belonging to them. How come when you go to the vet, you can't do medicine for your dog? How come when you call the vet and the dog the person, they can't move? It's a problem. Webber, this is a system. They said they put themselves in the position, right? I'm not messing with them. But this is a system. You call a system. You're supposed to set yourself out. This is a negativist thing. Okay? This thing look like you deal with politics business, and I don't need politics business either. Okay? A man call and say, he animals, this, you're supposed to say, okay then, I can come this day, I can come that day. You know, oh, hold on 4 days, hold on 5 days. What sense hold on 4 days, 5 days, any animal gone dead before? Huh? These people kind of say, but it's not ready yet. It's not ready. And they need to pull themselves up. Thank you to hold on.
Thank you.
we can move on to another topic. I hope that we would have enough of the treatment to get that tick problem eradicated.
We're not going to eradicate it, Stanley. Just like we can't eradicate a lot of other things, we won't be able to eradicate ticks.
Okay.
We don't have the resources to do that.
All right. Well, again, I just look at it from a pragmatic or practical point of view. And if you go after it all the time, of course, you said it is an expensive undertaking.
Very.
And if,
A bottle of Betical, 1 liter of Betical, $167 landed.
if you make the comparison as to the upside and the downside, and the downside is more costly than the upside in terms of saving the animals for slaughter, meat production, as the case might be, whatever it is, then a complete comparison should be made and make a determination as to whether or not the expenditure is justified. But the eradication of a disease, of whatever it is quite paramount. And it means that sources should be found, whether you're going to get help from other sources. You go to individuals who can help fund certain things, depending on how the case is made. People sometimes become generous to a lot of things.
Well, let me just fill you in before you just go off on,
No, I'm just...
Let me fill you in. Let me
Yes.
fill you in. We tried an eradication program not just for St. Kitts Nevis, but for the entire, Eastern Caribbean, because we had the tick, the Amblyomma Amblyomma variegatum, which is the pretty tick, and it was supposed to be a coordinated approach so that everybody would be doing the same thing at the same time. Because what you have is that you can have ticks moving from one place to the other, because you have movement by birds and other things that it was, proposed. So we embarked on this program, which was supported by FAO. It was supported with a lot of funds from different partners, international partners. And we were supposed to be doing this thing for 2 years. And even in Nevis, we couldn't get people to coordinate to that extent. So in some places, they had declared provisionally tick-free because they thought that they had gotten on top of this thing. But it's a tick that is very difficult, for you to eliminate, because it is a tick that we call a tree-host tick, in that it just doesn't stay on cattle alone. It would have 3 different in the life cycle of it.
Let's see. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Oh, yes. Good evening. This for Pat concerning the medicine that we use for the animals. In St. Kitts, it costs $100. In Nevis, $167. She just says that we're going to get it. I want to know what the price is different.
The difference is that in St. Kitts, they have access to the SIDF money, and they have used that and have been subsidizing the farmers over there. We do not have the same access. There was a time when you could get it for $50 in St. Kitts. That is, it is way below what the cost price is. But of course, like I said, they have a godfather. We don't. So trying to adjust the proposal that you had, Stanley, like I said, we embarked on it. It was supposed to be a 2-year program.
Okay, Pat, the caller might be back. Thank you for holding. Hello, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air. Okay, Dr. Bartlett, go ahead.
Yes. So we, like you said, we had a lot of partners, and we had vehicles. We had Betical. I mean, we had Betical by the big drums. It was expensive, but it was an undertaking that was supposed to be for 2 years. Then it dragged into 4 years, and it dragged on even further. And at the end, they just had to give up. There were some countries that had declared themselves provisionally tick-free because of the science at that time, as they knew it, and it just didn't, it was not sustained. Let me just put it that way. So we did not realize the end goal, which was eradication. So we got to the point where, based on the data that we had collected in Nevis, the region made a decision, and based on the data that we, like I said, we had consistently kept, we recognized that there was a seasonality to the tick, in that you have an explosion when it comes to the third quarter of the year, and it persists up until the first quarter of the the other year, the ensuing year. And then after that, you could rest comfortably that you just see one or two ticks. And so we had to go to that route in terms of just being controlled. So previous to 1979, before we started the program, we, well, that is when we started a control program in 1979. We were using everything that you could think of we have used up to that point. In 1992 is when we would have started full-fledged doing the amblyomma eradication. And then after that, we had to go back to control. So I don't know any place in the world that have eradicated ticks. In the USA, there's the white deer that has a tick that they thought that they had eradicated at one point, and it flared up again. And so I don't know of any place that they have completely eradicated a tick. But we have heard about stories of Boophilus being eradicated in some places, and then you hear a resurgence again, and then so that is the nature of the thing. I don't know that we would be able to completely eradicate it. In St. Croix, they had less of a problem there. At some point, they said that they eradicated it, and then after that, we still had the occasional flare-ups. So, like I said, I don't think that we're in any position to be able to eradicate the tick. We just have to control it as best as we could.
Okay, Mr. Snally, you made a comment when you were talking about the bad stream and the washroom facility, and you questioned whether or not wastewater can filter into the good water and contaminate. But I just wanted to say, I mean, in these days, they put a tank below the earth that collects the waste, and after, when it's full, then the truck come and pump it out.
Right.
And that's why I personally can't understand why there is no public bathroom at the bad stream, because that would have been a great concern.
Okay, now I'll come back. Okay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that would have been a great concern, of course, contaminating the water. But we know for a long time it's happening. It's not the time gone where you just dig a hole and put waste into the earth. You have to. I think it's by law.
Oh.
You have to put it in a tank.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Well, if you call yourself a vet maintaining animals, you're supposed to be up to date to your things that you're looking for animals. What Patricia Barton can do, I can't understand. Because you call yourself a vet, you're supposed to know what the animals need. So I'm going to listen.
Okay.
I know when we were kids, we had an expansive infestation of bed bugs. But let me tell you, everybody's house had bed bugs. I knew some people who were wealthy, and sure enough, one day at school we found a bed bug and they fell off. And we thought only the poor people like us ourselves had bed bugs, but it was just an infestation. But eventually they stuck with it with DDT, which apparently was a pesticide that was bad, but that stuff eradicated bed bugs from Nevis. And let me tell you, it was a godsend, because that bed bug was terrible.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good night.
You're on the air. Could you go ahead?
I'm calling to tell you, saying, I got a problem for the donkey. Government, I think the government have enough land, right? That could give people a little work to catch the donkey them, put them on a piece of land, you know what I mean? Get some grass or some mash for them, feed the donkey them instead of shooting the donkey them, right? It's a God-blessed animal, a donkey. You understand, right? Next thing, the hot bath stream, I hear somebody talk about a public bath down there, you know what I mean, in case you want to pass, you know what I mean? That is a good area the government also needs to look into. Sometimes some simple things is what killing the country. You understand? So I don't know if Patricia or Pat Bartlett could get some moving a little faster for me. You got that for me, sir?
I got that.
All right. Have a blessed night.
I got you. You as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, the donkeys, of course, we are not like India, where the cattle is sacred. And there are some real problems in India with regard to the cattle. But if we are able to put the donkeys in a particular area, then we use them as dog meat. I remembered while I was growing up, we used to have a schooner or vessel coming from whether it was St. Vincent and the Grenadines or St. Lucia, as the case might be. And we would sell cattle, horse, donkeys, and mule. And therefore, if we've got an infestation, or not infestation, but this expansion of the donkey population, if we're going to quarantine them, then we put them in, as the caller said, but then we have to find a solution to reduce the population. And I'm certain that many of these dogs that are used as pets, they would eat the meat. And I understood that in Cuba, they eat donkeys. They eat donkey meat. So if we are able to have a system where we are able to catch them, and then we sell them to Cuba, reduce the population. Because donkeys do pose a problem. It's a menace. I mean, we have to slow down on the road. Of course, nobody should be hitting donkeys, because you know that they're around, and they will just run across the street if you don't watch out. You yourself get run over by a donkey.
So you shouldn't be hitting them.
No,
but they'll hit you.
They'll hit you because they're animals.
There's not just animals. You know what a donkey is.
Well, as it relates to the donkeys, I once had a conversation with someone who is in a position who could make a difference. And I would have proposed, I said, why can't we have a donkey sanctuary? And I pointed out to a particular location that was not being used. At least I didn't think it was being used efficiently. And I suggested maybe we can have the donkey, sanctuary in that area, because it would keep down the shrubs, and that's a place that we can really control the population. If we were to take a donkey from from the north of the island, we can take it to that particular location, take them off the streets, have a sanctuary, those that need to be put down or whatever, where you can call, and you can have a program to manage. And I was told point blank, it's not going to happen, and but that did not prevent me from making the recommendation. But like I said, sometimes in a position you can only recommend. Some people think that you can do more than you can, but I think you're a wise person when you understand what your limitations are, and you try to work within the limitations that are set.
Well, like I've said, I'm fully aware that Cubans eat donkeys. We don't do it here in Nevis. I mean, we are privileged people, fortunately.
There are
Thank God.
people here that eat donkey, but they don't want nobody to know.
People eat donkey.
Yeah.
Well, obviously.
Many times donkeys are discovered with no back legs and all that.
Really?
Yeah, just the body, yeah. There are people here that eat donkeys, but they don't want nobody to know.
Well, it's protein. It's protein, and just like a cow. We know in India the cow is sacred, and you go to India and try to kill a cow, you're in greater trouble in certain parts of India. I saw a documentary the other day, or maybe it was on the news. Yep. There are some people who have animals, cows, and they use them for the milk, as the case might be, and they are having some legal problems or illegal problems with other people based on their religion. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. There are solutions to these practical problems. And if
Yep.
you create a sanctuary, then somebody can make some money out of it.
But it's not going to happen.
I know that people used to come right in my yard and caught donkeys. They came in my yard, caught donkeys, and sent them to Ross University. I don't know.
Yeah,
if,
but they have a capacity.
I don't know if Ross is still in the business of taking donkeys.
They've been in the business long enough now so that they don't need to be coming on a regular basis to get donkeys.
Okay.
Because if you were to go over there, you'll see that they have a herd.
Okay. Well, we still need to deal with this menace because they are overpopulated. There's an overpopulation of donkeys. Well, based on whatever I understood that St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a nation got a seat on the
Security Council.
Security Council, and that is a big deal. Little small St. Vincent and the Grenadines got a seat among the big boys. Well, I'm hoping that they would be able to do well and be able to bring about, since the big boys weren't able to bring about peace, maybe they should turn the whole thing around and bring smaller nations onto the Security Council with the hope that they'll be able to reduce the number of wars that are occurring all over the place. But it is really great that St. Vincent and the Grenadines have arrived at this particular juncture to own such a prestigious title, a member of the Security Council, one of our little Caribbean nation. That's the country, Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
It's great.
Yep, they also have geothermal. They're on their way to, getting geothermal officially in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as in Dominica. And the question has been asked, how far are we behind as it relates to geothermal energy? It's unfortunate we don't have Mr. Van tonight to maybe answer the question. But I think maybe that is a consideration that we ought to be taken seriously, not just for election gimmicks. As Weber would just dismiss it, I would imagine, and say that is election talk.
But it's about a year or two where we got the assurance that the finances was organized. They did find some people, and it was something. I think Mackey Trust was also dealing with the group. But these things just come up and then fade away, and one would have thought then and there after the bold public statement that at least, well, thank God something is going to happen. But somebody disappear, I suppose. Things going back to square one. We hear no more about it. So, but yes, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that is good, and I hope they have their own opinion on matters and be strong enough to advocate it. And because I realize sometimes we fall to our big sister wishes. And of course they would maybe represent the voice of the Caribbean in all these international issues. So that's a good thing, but we are yet to realize, what can I say? We are yet to realize their importance there, because sometimes you hold a good position, but your opinions are not yours, in terms of effectuating opinions and so forth. So I mean, it's a good thing, but what I don't want to have is yes people and yes. We don't want to be a yes region. I find with this Venezuela thing, it's opened up a lot of things about us as it relates to our opinion on international matters, and not even international, regional matters. We prefer to keep quiet because it's a soaring situation down there, and we see what's going on. And yes, we have decided to stay neutral on the matter because they say that it's a sovereign nation, and unless they are invited there, they would not have much to do it. And I don't understand that part, really. You know, sometimes you have to go in without an invitation, even though it's a sovereign nation. But it's a standoff approach, undecided approach. It doesn't add anything to the debate. You know, when I suppose, yes, they could have had a say. They could have had a say, and you know, the media is having its way with it, and we are hearing what they want us to hear, and some of us are taking sides based on what we're hearing. So we need strength. We need to be stronger and more forthright, and speak up when it's time to speak as a region. So I'm happy that St. Vincent and Grenadines is on. We'll wait and see what they say. We'll wait and see their inputs on these international issues.
But you mentioned that, yes, go in without an invitation. What are you inferring, or what are you implying? Are you implying that to solve the problem, the United States should go in and take charge? Because I know that you've been in opposition. You said without an invitation.
We are talking about Caribbean area.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Caribbean, the Caribbean area. It was said that an opinion would not be expressed. They are saying neutral because it's a sovereign nation and they are left to their own, you know, mechanism down there. But I'm saying that doesn't hold in every situation, and even with the big guys, But what the big guys need to do is to respect, and that is what they don't have. Respect the sovereignty of a country, you know.
But not when people are dying, not when you are systematically put in place.
I like the way you say it. They're systematically allowing the people to die. America is.
The United States and I think NATO got themselves involved in Kosovo when a lot of people were being killed in Kosovo, and they actually brought relief. The war was fought, people died, but now they've got some degree of freedom and liberty. In Venezuela, you again mentioned sovereignty, but they should go in without an invitation. What does that mean? I personally know that the whole system is based on political ideology, which is foreign to this region. And I'm saying you have to go in without an invitation and reduce the number of deaths that is occurring, the hardship on the people, because nobody's just going to give up political and economic power voluntarily. And if for some reason you are not able to understand humanity and the humanitarian side as a leader, that you have to say, well, look, people, the nation must be governed, and we have to share the resources, and we have to bring peace and tranquility to our nation. And thus, let us work together. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And if Maduro, for some reason, realizes that he cannot bring a solution to the problem, then he should go. He should step down for the good of mankind within his country.
So you're saying that if the U.S. go in and take charge, put in a government of the, of their choice, that's a good example.
There would be Venezuelans. You're not going to find any real Americans in there, living in there.
Well, let's try
You're going to
that.
find it being done by Venezuelans who, in fact,
Yeah,
felt
yeah, about
that
the
the country was
Bay of
going down.
Pigs, the Bay of Pigs.
Well, the Bay of Pigs occurred simply because Fidel Castro was quite an intelligent leader. He led his country, and his country is still suffering up to this day. But it was for political power. Don't misunderstand me. The Cubans are smart people, cars that are nearly 100 years old, 80 years old, still running in Cuba. Those fellows are able to manufacture their own parts, and they're U.S. made. But if you truly look at the standard of living in Cuba, it is still a third world country in terms of the standard of living. There are people, and they truly look at what's happening in there, and we truly see and make a comparison. We know that they're not living
Make a
up to
comparison with who?
standards.
With who? Make a comparison with who?
With even Nevis, people in Nevis. There are people down there who are not living well in terms of the houses, the accommodations, and so on.
That, you know, comparing other Caribbean islands to Nevis, St. Lucia, I go to certain places, see, you know, huge ghettos, you know, galvanized and so forth.
Well,
So
that is
I
part
don't
of
think
our
you're
culture.
saying much, and I think
That is
that
part of our
that
culture.
is still the brainwash thing that we get from the media about Cubans. Cubans are proud people. Cubans are
Everybody's a proud people.
Yeah, but Cuba is a leading nation, man. You know, I mean, and you know, we must salute Cuba as a Caribbean country who have done so much and continue to. You know, how much Navy is in Cuba.
We
and
understand
go to
that.
Cuba. You know,
I'm not saying every part of Cuba is desolate. That's not what I'm saying.
we are to salute Cuba more than to be critical of it. To be able to withstand America aggression for more than a half a century. You know, and
They had no
and they're
choice.
working.
They had no choice.
And they're working along with Venezuela. It's the same thing happening again here, you know. It's the same thing happening right before us, and that's why I say I'm so happy to be alive to see this, you know. And as the Americans are saying, well, there's about 20,000 Castro people in Venezuela, and they need to get out. They're so disrespectful, you know. Castro people, there's a government in place in Cuba, and if they have the intelligence in Venezuela, respect them as that. We're Castro people.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, Rebel.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. Did I hear my friend Edric say that the quality of life in Cuba is the lowest in the Caribbean?
Edric, did you say that?
No.
Oh, what did he say?
I've seen photographs of people in Cuba in certain houses,
Yeah.
and the quality of that house is not up to standard. That's what I've seen. I didn't take the television pictures. I've seen it.
No.
So, but based on what I know of Cubans, Cubans are very smart and bright people. And I said, U.S. cars are still running there. They don't get the parts from the United States. They manufacture their own parts to keep those vehicles running. But when you look at Cuba as a country, if the embargo had not persisted, Cubans would have been living as a first world country. But we know exactly the negative impact the embargo has had on the Cubans.
But
they can't extricate themselves from it because they just don't have the economic power to do it. So they have to make do with what they have.
Do you know the average Cuban is healthier than the average American?
That is quite so.
Now, what are the important things in life? I think one of the important things in life is, and I heard a very successful Chinese businessman say this on social media recently. He said in China, we have one party running the country. In America, you have two parties. But in China, over the last 30 years, we have had more change and development than they've had in America. I think it is soon going to be out of fashion for countries to go around the world and tell people how to run their countries. The Cuban situation is a special one, as is to some extent the Venezuelan. There was no reason in conscience for the United States to put all of that pressure on Cuba. And while it helped bring out the genius of the Cuban people and their instinct for survival, it also punished Cuba a lot, but it also hurt America. But Cuba used to be run by the mafia under Batista before Castro's death, before Castro's time. It used to be run by the mafia. And when Cuba was no longer available for mafia rule and that sort of thing, that is what really gave impetus to tourism development in Puerto Rico and indeed to a large extent Las Vegas.
Virgin Islands too.
Now Cuba not only trained a lot of people in medicine, but Cuba helped the ANC dismantle apartheid in South Africa.
Quite so.
So Cuba has done exceptionally well in a number of areas despite the setbacks. And I think, as your co-panelist here is saying, we should try to look at it in a broader and more positive perspective. And less punitive and judgmentally. Now, with regard to Venezuela, was Maduro elected in a fair election?
Based on what I've read and heard, no.
But based on what I've read and heard, yes.
Well, again, we will agree to disagree.
Well, the Carter Institute reported that he was elected in a fair election. Was Donald Trump elected in a fair election?
Based on the American standards, yes.
Based on the American standards.
But why don't I challenge you in this regard, just for half a second?
Yeah. But let me make my point, and then you could challenge me all you want.
I want you to continue to speak.
Anywhere you find oil, you're going to find problems. Because somebody wants to come in and control your oil. Venezuela has the most oil reserves in the world. And the Western power structure does not want the influence and control over that oil to be in the hands of people who don't sing to their songs and dance to their tunes. You see the friendship America has with Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia just finished murdering a man. And the Americans are the best of friends. Mm-hmm. They don't ask Saudi Arabia very loudly to modernize into a democracy, but they want Venezuela to do so, and they want Cuba to do so. They give lip service to China doing so, but they do an enormous amount of business with China. So this thing is less really about ideology and more about propaganda and money and power, in my humble opinion.
And the convenience to get there.
Maduro was elected by the Carter Institute adjudged to be a fair election. Why should Maduro be the one to leave? Why shouldn't Gaudio, or whatever his name is, leave?
Caller, might I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In reference to Venice.
Why should military threats be issued at the Maduro government? I don't have any horse in the race, but I don't think this muscular approach, this global, this
kind of approach should be used in this day and age? Go ahead, Rebel. Sorry.
Yeah, you know, this Venezuela situation is an important one for a lot of different reasons. But I wanted to focus in on the economic aspect of it and the type of economy that they have. A couple of weeks ago we touched on it a bit. But I wanted to ask the question whether or not we think that the capitalistic system could be failing after it had seemed successful after so many years. In that, you find now, as the campaign is heating up in the United States, there are a lot of persons who are of the view that the wealth, the large amount of wealth, is to centralize. And based on the system, how it is operated, maybe a different system now, whatever you may call it, need to be put in place so that the distribution of the wealth as a consequence of work can be distributed differently or more evenly.
Well, you see, I have a different view on these terms, Weber. To a large extent, capitalism is socialism for the rich. Obama and the pressure on the Venezuelan economy began long before Trump. The Americans wanted to close down the Venezuelan economy and punish them because they couldn't control the one before, I forget his name, the one who died. Chavez. Okay? Now, I'm not saying I'm a fan of Chavez or anything like that. I'm just telling you what I see. The Americans speak out against socialism. But when you bail out the banks, who are the biggest scams in America, you bail them out, and they have executives making $50 and $60 and $100 million a year in salary and bonuses. But you can't introduce a medical program to ensure that everybody gets a fair access to health care. And when you have to work until you're 40 and 50 to pay off student loans, that kind of, if you will, socialism is anathema to that mentality. But a socialism that bails out the banks and bails out the automobile industry and that sort of thing, because it's the same socialism, is welfare for the rich. When you have a country in which, when you get vacation, it is not under the law mandated that you get holidays with pay. I mean, how modern is that? In the United States, when you go on vacation, does your employer pay you during your holidays? I think not. We have had the Holidays with Pay Act in St. Kitts and Nevis since 1966. So, really, it is he who has the big stick who wields it, rather than using it, as you will, as a beacon for brotherhood and sharing of the world's resources. Any system that promotes and encourages dishonesty and greed and deprivation and bigotry is a bad system.
But what happens if it, by the very act of it, that is the way it works? On the flip side, people argue with what they may call it the socialism and so on and so forth.
But why do we have in absolutes, Weber? Why we can't have a mix?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you have certain extremities on one end, and now with the capitalistic system, they're finding out that the 1% of the people own 99% of the stuff. So you're wondering if that's a fair system, the way.
It is no different from Russia or China, except that in China you have more billionaires than you have in America, under what they call a communist system.
Right.
Chinese middle class. There are more people in the Chinese middle class than there are the entire American population. And it's a China is you have 130 million Chinese people travel the world every year for vacation, and they go back to the same communist system.
They've created a blend there that works for them, and they keep rebranding themselves. We might not see that as perfect for us. The thing is, I don't think it is right to impose yourself on other people the way that they should live. If they can live in harmony with each other and with nature, then that's something you can learn from. I think the labels capitalism, socialism, all of these things are things that tend to divide people rather than help us to look for more commonality, common ways of being better individually and collectively, and cut down all of this spending on military hardware and weaponizing everything. And I mean, again, look at the capitalist system, what we call the capitalist system. The media is owned by a handful of people. The television and entertainment industry is owned by a handful of people. All of the professional sports organizations are owned by a handful of people, which is the same thing in the totalitarian countries. Everything is owned by a handful of people.
Call the government.
For the order. Anyway.
So, but you maybe it's therefore an error for you know, people to come forward with different, whatever they may call it, but a different way of you know, for the economies and life and so on.
It can all be based on profit, Weber.
But that's what I'm saying. Maybe a little from A and a little from B and so on, and come up with something that perhaps might be fairer.
That's right. And I think the first thing we have to look at is respecting Mother Nature. This is what provides us with life, the earth, sustaining the environment, sustaining our humanity, our love and respect for each other, being able to feed ourselves and each other, stop wasting so much food, stop eating so much nonsense. You know, all of these things, the greed and the selfishness and the insecurities, we need an attitudinal change. And whatever you call that system, it will be. The more important thing is having something that works.
Right.
You know, what we have now is not working. We can call it whatever we want. And the Chinese are boasting and saying that they're doing better business than the capitalist countries.
Honorable?
And they're right. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Honorable?
Okay.
Look, you have spoken a mouthful, but I am saying to you that you are looking at an ideal situation.
Am I?
Yes. And China has modernized its society with a certain blend of capitalism. That's why you got so many rich people in China. If it was still concentrated in the hands of the Communist Party with reference to government control, government owns everything, then you wouldn't have 130 million rich people as you have stated. But China recognizes in order to get things going, it had to free up its society, allow people to begin to use their own ingenuity and productivity to have this 130 million that you're talking about.
Edric, you are exactly agreeing with what I am saying.
But also,
but they only have one party there.
They have one party.
The Communist Party.
True. It makes no difference whether it is one party or two parties or 10 parties.
It does not. Tell your friends in America that they need a one party.
Because only one party rules at a time. In India, one party rules at a time. Even though you got in China, one party rules simply because that is how they control their system, as at this particular juncture. But later on, it's going to change. Now with the bailing out of those large corporations in the United States.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody who had done it differently, in my view, would have been foolhardy. You cannot allow so many people to be unemployed with these large corporations going belly up. And ultimately, the problem comes right back to haunt you in terms of unemployment.
So let me ask you one quick question. The trade wars that Mr. Trump Trump is waging with these countries.
That's foolish.
Who will win it?
But China obviously going to win the trade wars because China
All
got.
right, my brother. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.
Yeah, okay, good evening. Edric, you have the last word.
Well, I'm just saying that we have listened to the Honorable, and he's got some of it right, got some of it wrong. But I am saying to you,
How do we meet in the middle of right and wrong?
you have, well, there must be compromise.
Let's see. Hello, good evening.
There must be compromise.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
You have a half a minute.
Yes, I want to agree with the previous caller before Mr. Stanley. I think he has the idea that the systems, capitalists, socialists, all of them, they are geared towards their own purposes. And you're not going to get them to change. You're not going to get them to accept. There's no way that communist is going to accept capitalism. Interestingly, I found out, and if you don't know about it, go and look for Karl Marx 1 and 2.
Engels.
Right. Karl Marx 1 and 2. And if you read those two versions, he is the one, that communist, who set up the whole capitalistic system. He actually told them what to do.
Okay.
All right, I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much. So, how do you meet within the middle of right?
You have to have a combination of socialism and capitalism, because ultimately you still got to take care of people.
Okay.
People need to eat,
So if we were to
shelter, and clothes.
and if we were to do that, what you just recommend, what do we call it? Stanleyism?
Okay, well, on that note.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mac Brantley tomorrow evening for On the Mac. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions